I see these guys every single day. You guys only see like, the finished product. You guys see what's on the court. You guys see what's when the cameras are on, when there's media access. You guys don't see the ups and downs of us in the locker room talking things out. You guys don't see us in practice trying to figure things out. And we all want to win. And obviously, there's ups and downs of it, and we have times where we look disconnected and we look connected. That's just team. That's basketball. That's sports. That's life. There's going to be ups and downs. It's all about how you move on and how you get how you move in a positive direction, regardless if things are negative or positive.
All right, my fellow Knicks fans, we're going to get into it. Some of the dynamics that are happening in this series is kind of ratcheting up. And Jalen Brunson, I would say in the first few games, he does not have the most favorable matchup. But we're going to dive deep into some of those dynamics and how things are opening up for other guys. Also, things are getting chippy. Yes, sir. The San Antonio Spurs are a good defensive team, and it shows, and they're well disciplined, especially for a young team. Pretty surprising. But this is what it's all about at the highest levels. Things are really going to come down to the very keen details. Now, first off, I'm wondering if the Spurs try to punk the Knicks in Game 3. There was a lot of extra gestures by Cornette, Castle, Wemby. You got to wonder if they try to set the tone, because even when Wemby shoved Jalen Brunson, he kind of laughed it off. This young team showed no fear, and for them, it might be the first time in the playoffs that they have gone up against a team that kind of has the same size and just strength in the perimeter as them. But I liked it because this is what the finals is all about. And my fellow Knicks fans, you should be confident in this series, because this might be the wake-up call that they need in order to close out this series. Now, to kick this off, just like in the Indiana Pacers series, the San Antonio Spurs are going to look to tire out Brunson. He does not have the favorable matchup, just dealing with the Spurs backcourt. Castle is going to make him work extremely hard right here, and this has been happening all series long. Like, JB just constantly has to work so hard. Not only JB is dealing with one hell of a front court, but once he gets dribble penetration, Wemby keeps changing his shots. And it leads to this turnover right here. So even when the Spurs are not having a good offensive outing and they're just making a lot of young mistakes, this is how they're able to remain in these games. Their defense and making the Knicks get sloppy. Once again, we're always going to keep these segments about the on-court dynamics. It's never to tell you the final score, but just looking into the first few games of this series, Jalen Brunson does not have the ideal matchup, and his efficiency is showing it. This is why in Game 3, the kind of absent offense of Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges was so felt. In Game 3, it sort of led to a lot of stagnation as Mikal Bridges is trying to bring the ball up here, and the offense begins to kind of stall a little bit. The Knicks kind of struggle to get dribble penetration outside of Brunson. Like, as you can see, it's just they get bailed out by the foul. But all series long, outside of JB, guys have struggled to kind of get that dribble penetration. And that was the beautiful part about Jose Alvarado getting into his groove in Game 3, just coming in, initiating the offense with all that dribble penetration. You know, it was kind of weird to notice that Mike Brown actually subbed out Deuce and gave his minutes to Jose because he was able to get that dribble penetration. This is a nasty fadeaway on Wemby. But that was just one layer of relief with Brunson just dealing with so much ball pressure. I didn't think the squad was as in sync as they was earlier in the first two games. Just take a look right here in Game 2. JB, in order to get him free, they ran more off-ball plays, which in Game 3 we didn't get to see a lot of. Okay, second screen comes in, and now they get JB matched up on Champagne, which he loves this matchup. Almost a violation right there, but this is how they kind of free JB up from just dealing with Castle, because he's like a Jimmy Butler Jr. right there. Just the strength and his ability to be hanging on guys' hip. Him and also Dylan Harper. Hopping right back to Game 3, I thought the Spurs perfectly set up JB right here, because look who's on Vassell, which he loves matching up with, Josh Hart. So a pick and roll from out here is going to be kind of useless. You got Dylan Harper out here, And that's really the wild card for the Spurs, because it's something about them not starting him over Fox sometimes, or just the other perimeter player that they have in their starting lineup. He might not have enough experience, but just imagine a lineup with him and Castle, as we see right here, because now JB, he's really got to pick his switches. I would say, is De'Aaron Fox a good matchup? De'Aaron Fox is kind of fast, but defensively, he's not really sound like that. But yeah, this gets real tricky because Castle makes him work real hard and he stays on his hip. But they're able to draw the foul, but JB got to work hard as fuck. It's just not going to be sustainable if this series goes at least 6 or 7 games. I thought Mike Brown did a good job of just getting JB more free in the beginning of this series. It even left more breathing room for JB to exert more energy on the defensive end. Now here's that same lineup again for JB. This time around, Mikal Bridges gets him a switch on Dylan Harper. And now, as you can see, Castle's on the floor also. And now you're dealing with Wemby. So even if he gets past everybody, he still has to worry about Wemby being out here. And Mitch can't necessarily pull Wemby out. So you're going to see him get past Dylan Harper, still dealing with him. Dylan Harper, I'm not going to lie, for a rookie, he has good defensive positioning. But JB, he's kind of in his zone right here. But once again, dealing with Wemby. That's why I say JB in this series, he does not have a favorable matchup. We're going to need Karl-Anthony Towns to continue his great play from the first 2 games of this series all the way to the end. I'm not saying JB won't be able to cook up in this series. He could still elevate. But the Spurs right now, they're being more intentional about the way they're guarding Brunson to kind of wear him down as the series progresses. It's almost like Rick Carlisle and the Indiana Pacers unlocked a nice scheme for Brunson, because in both of the series that the Knicks had with the Pacers, you could see they wore him down as those playoff battles progressed. This San Antonio Spurs team being young, they're not as intentional about their offense, with Victor Wembanyama not necessarily being as polished in his post game, just getting him to his spots. They sort of went to it early in game 3, but it wasn't as effective because Wemby was only 2 for 6 in the first half, and he was going to the post like crazy. But again, defensively, they've been very intentional with the way they've been guarding Jalen Brunson. One thing about JB, you can't ignore that gravitational pull. Check out Dylan Harper right here. He makes sure that Wemby sticks to Josh Hart. Because remember, they don't want to have Wemby come up. That's the most important part with the Spurs. They want to leave him down low to be that presence. But just look at the gravitational pull towards JB. See? Now Vessel follows Josh Hart. Remember, they're trying to keep Wemby down low. But if JB is going to pull up from 3, Wemby's going to come out. And now this is one of the ways Josh Hart got all these open threes. But the spacing is kind of different here. And you see the way JB kind of took off from 1 foot. That's that beat down throughout the course of the game, because right here we're in the 4th quarter. But that's just the beat down of just him dealing with Dylan Harper, Castle hanging on his hip, the Spurs blitzing, hard hedges. Is going to wear him down over time. This right here shows everything we talked about all in one play. Look at JB, all that ball pressure in the backcourt. And now we're going to see the gravitational pull of Brunson just gets other guys open shots. But this is a lot of ball pressure to deal with. JB's working extra hard. And now Shaman with this cut. It leads to the Bridges open 3. But that gravitational pull is going to allow other guys to cook up. And that's why Bridges just being kind of a ghost in game 3, it really affected the Knicks. Same thing for Karl-Anthony Towns. You can't have 2 starters in the finals basically just be MIA. Now jumping back into game 3, this is one of the few mistakes I've seen the Spurs make defensively. I can't believe Wemby let JB just turn right here. And you're going to see how easy this layup came by. Those kind of baskets came very far and few the whole night. Once again, the Spurs are very intentional about the way they're guarding JB. Come to think about it, all those threes that Josh Hart was hitting in that first half, that really kept the game close. Here's some more of that gravitational pull. OG is going to force a switch on Castle. And now JB likes this matchup against Vassell. Victor Wembanyama stunts in a little bit more, trying to close Brunson's driving lanes, and it's going to open things up for guys. And this is how Bridges, Shamet, and now Josh Hart in game 3, this is how they got off. And look at that stare down by Josh Hart looking right at Wemby. Okay, Josh Hart, we see you. You want all them damn commercials Victor Wembanyama is supposed to get. Here's some more of that gravitational pull around Brunson. Look at Castle. He's waiting to fully make that commitment, just blitz. And it's going to open things up for Landry Shamet. And JB has Champagne. He loves to go one-on-one with him and also Vessel. You know, this series is going to be good. We're so far still filling things out. As right here, you're seeing the Knicks be very intentional on offense, trying to get the switch and get JB his favorable matchup. But the Spurs on the other end, they're not doing this on offense. They're not being intentional of just playing Wemby out in the post using that size, or just being intentional about him using his size, because he's not good at operating around the elbows or anywhere in the paint when it just gets too physical. But the Knicks right here, look, on offense, they get one switch, and now they get even an easier switch on Harrison Barnes. See, OG forces that, and this is what JB is more comfortable with, and he attacks it right away. It's a good look, but you'll live with that. Each team does have their flaws, but the Knicks in game 3, I would say their defense wasn't as much on the string as it was in the first 2 games. The team was also very turnover prone, and JB looked like he was forcing up a lot of shots. Even OG Anunoby reflected on it.
Your defense tonight allowed most points you guys have allowed in the playoffs. Did they do anything different, or was it just it wasn't there tonight?
Probably just we weren't as connected as we normally are. We had some mental mishaps and allowed some easy buckets, and then also just our transition defense wasn't where we wanted it to be. So,
and that transition defense is something that the Spurs is very intentional about. Notice Cat after this layup. Pay attention to him and Cornette. This is the center of the Spurs. Look how quickly he gets up. He's trying to beat Cat. Once again, this is the motherfucking finals. It's about the smaller, keen details. We all know Cat loves to throw the dramatics in the regular season. Once he gets these layups, he's yelling at the referee. The Spurs have horrible half-court offense. This is one of the ways that they generate points. Karl-Anthony Towns had a nice learning lesson after the first game. Check out Wemby after this made layup. Look at Wemby. He's going to beat Cat to the other end. Draws the foul. Hopping right back to game 3 after JB makes this crazy layup. Look at the Spurs be very intentional. And of course, the wild card in this series, Dylan Harper. You know, him and Castle in this game, they were eating good. The Knicks were kind of flat-footed in transition. They even let up a couple alley dunks against Wemby. The defense overall didn't look quite as in sync. And I do believe that ended up being reflected back into the offense. That's why shit looks so stagnant. Check out Mike Brown right here as he speaks on it.
You mentioned the stagnancy offensively.
Yeah.
What do you feel like led to that, and what do you feel like kind of didn't seem like quite as much involvement from Carl in general there on the offense? What did you feel like led to that as well?
We were just playing a lot of drag and into what we call, summertime, which is just kind of ball movement, body movement. And we just wanted to stand and watch one guy dribble a ton. And then when the ball got passed, there were no quick decisions by the guy receiving the basketball. So we have actions we can get into that we didn't do a good job of getting into, first of all, but it's okay, because you're not going to be able to run plays all the time, especially with how physical they are playing defensively. Sometimes you just got to go by guys, but you got to be smart. You got to take care of the basketball. You got to space right. You got to move the ball. You got to move bodies, and we've done that, quite a bit, and we didn't do a good job of it tonight.
It goes to show you we're in for a fucking dogfight. The fact that this young Spurs team came down to 34th Street, stayed composed, and handled business. They looked like they had more energy than this Knicks team. We looked so fucking flat-footed throughout the course of game 3. And just like how the Knicks did Tyrese Maxey, cutting the head off the snake of the Philadelphia 76ers offense by just blitzing them, bumping them. The Spurs did the same thing to Jalen Brunson, and it trickled down to the Knicks defense. It sort of disrupted things the same way like Hacker Mitch does when Mike Brown is going through his rotations. And just one last thing, I thought in the third quarter right here with JB just getting the 4th foul, Victor Wembanyama was about to go to the bench and just get some rest. We lost the ability in the non-Wemby minutes to actually utilize and just get some points, being able to attack the paint at ease. We missed out on that. I believe we came out either even or the Spurs might have slightly won those minutes. But hey, it's part of the game. The officiating, it was a little bit inconsistent, I'm not gonna lie, in game 3. And I'm gonna leave you with this. Just check out Mike Brown as he kind of elaborated on it. But you're gonna live with these. You know, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. But in the second half, it was a huge disparity between the Spurs shooting free throws and the Knicks. And it goes to show you, once again, the Knicks, they do have a lot of advantages because the Spurs, their offense really comes off of the mistakes the Knicks make, so they can go out in transition. And, you know, they're not really a good half-court team. We've seen it throughout that fourth quarter. But you guys check it out.
The inconsistency you're talking about in the officiating, did you take this up with, did you talk to them about it? And if so, what was their explanations as to why some things were getting called and some weren't?
Yeah, I talked to him. You know, they outshot us 14-3 in the third quarter from the free throw line, and I talked to them, and they said, "Well, this is a foul. This is a foul." I said, "Okay, maybe right, but here are examples where they fouled and it didn't get called." That's the question that I have is that's the question I had with them is, you know, you're right. We did foul, but they fouled too, and it's like I said, if they do this in Game 4, where it's 24-8 in the second half, it's going to be tough for us to win. Now, there again, I don't want, and it's going to be that because I said it. The story is going to be that, but there are some controllables that we did not do a good job of doing. We allowed them to hit first at the beginning of the game. We allowed them to hit first at the beginning of the second half, and we turned the ball over, and we were stagnant offensively, and we allowed them to get to the paint, and we did not pay attention to detail with what we're supposed to do defensively. So there are a lot of things that we can do better, and we're going to have to do better. But in the same breath, like I said, hopefully they'll see some more fouls called against them, so it's not 24-8 this is a 4-point ball game. 4-point ball game. It's a 1-possession ball game going down the stretch, you know, and it's tough to overcome.
Goes to show you some of those challenges the Knicks end up winning. I would say in games 2 and 3, same thing for the Spurs, to take away some points or just to not allow guys to go to the free throw line. That has proven very pivotal in this series so far. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a nice little Tyson fight we're gonna see here. But you fellas enjoy. This Knicks team is definitely truly prepared for anything that comes their way. So just be confident in the squad. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.